everybody, Jakey here from YHS on Monster Island. And if you are coming over from Yes Have Some or any of the many YHS shows in the Yes Have Some network, you might be prone to a little toy anxiety. Well, this is a little bit different. This is the Kaiju cousin of toy anxiety. This is SOFUBI Stress. Now, what is this show? Why am I talking to you here today? You know, it's going to be a little bit of everything. We might do some unboxings. We might talk a little Kaiju collectible news. We might do some deep dives on some of my favorite pieces of SOFUBI and Tokusatsu toys that are out there kind of in the ether. It could be a little bit of everything, and that's why I like it. No set schedule. I'll just come to you when the moment is right, when the time is right, and I have something to say. And we're going to kick it off today with a really, really cool Kaiju toy review from one of my favorite pieces of all time. But we'll get to that in a second. First and foremost, please, if you like what we're doing on YHS on Monster Island, if you like what we're doing in the greater Yes Have Some network, please hit the like, subscribe to this channel. There's so much great content from Ghostbusters to Jurassic Park, from Jaws and other major horror franchises to what we're doing with Kaiju and Godzilla and all that entails. So it's a really just all-encompassing network, and please check them out. Yes Have Some Prime, YHS Prime with Craig Goldberg, Abigail Gardner, and Jacob Walsh. It's, hey, if it didn't exist, we wouldn't be here today. It's just one of the best, most uplifting, fun, eccentric podcast that you'll ever listen to, and what a great community it's built around it. Of course, Toy Anxiety on YouTube every Tuesday. It's a hit sensation. It is changing the toy community as we know it. It's positive. It is funny. The charisma and the chemistry of these four, because it's those same three from YHS Prime plus the Canadian kingpin of collectors, Mr. Ryan Dole. It's simply the best toy show out there. And of course, there's so much other content. Abigail Gardner, Kat Hansen, and Ryan Dole with the Bad Bitches, the Star Wars focused show on YouTube. That's coming back. And there's just a litany of other really cool YHS content. So please go check them out, whether it's podcasts, whether it's a YouTube show, it's well worth your time. And I hope that you also enjoy SOFUBI Stress. And my guess is if you're checking it out, you probably like SOFUBI. So hopefully you'll give us a chance again. So that's number one. And number two, like I did mention, we're going to talk Kaiju toy review. And I wanted to lay some ground rules. You know, this is such a subjective discussion. It's art. It really is. I believe toy design, whether it's high-end designer vinyl figures or whether it's the stuff that you're getting at your local Target or Walmart, there's so much effort and artistic design put into these products that it is subjective. So I try to look at all of the items I talk about really on four criteria, the four S's. An S, I mean, SOFUBI, it makes sense, right? Everything on the show is going to start with an S. People know I love my alliterations. So we're going to look at, of course, the subject. You know, at the end of the day, it could be the most beautiful thing in the world, but if it's of something I don't care about or you don't care about, who cares? There's beautiful, beautiful toys rendered for every property in the world, but if I don't care about the subject, it doesn't matter. Then the sculpt. We'll talk about the sculpt. I mean, I think especially in SOFUBI, you can get really wacky. You can stay true to the character, to the subject matter itself. So the sculpt, I think, is important. Then the scheme, the colorway. I think in our world, that is so important because, I mean, sometimes you just want a rainbow glow in the dark glitter, you know, King Ghidorah. Sometimes you do. And so you can usually find it in the world of SOFUBI. And last but not least, and this isn't always super important to collectors that buy what they like, but there are collectors out there that this does matter. So I do want to talk about, and that's scarcity. You know, in the world of SOFUBI, we have small production runs, right? Sometimes we get a production of 30 or 40, or there's exclusives to retailers or events. And I think that matters because, once again, if you really love this and it's really hard to find, it's going to drive up the value or the perceived value, and it might cost a little bit more. So the scarcity, you know, between a mass-produced Bandai movie monster series and then something that was, you know, a lucky bag in a pop-up shop in, you know, on Princess Street in Japan. So you never know what is going to catch your eye, and scarcity is something that you need to consider. The other thing I want to talk about is, hey, at the end of the day, all this is wonderful. There's nothing that I like or dislike, that is off limits here. Like, it is truly, we want to talk about everything from the world of tokusatsu toys and SOFUBI kaiju collectibles. And that brings me to my last point. People might not know this, but I do actually run a kaiju toy store called Toku Toy Town, tokutoytown.com. And so a lot of that will kind of bleed into this content. So I do want to apologize in advance. I'll do my best to make sure you guys know when I'm talking as Jakey from YHS on Monster Island and SOFUBI Stress, or Jakey from Toku Toy Town, because a lot of the unboxing and stuff might bleed over. So I wanted to put that disclaimer out there and be as honest as I can with you guys, because it's important. I'm not here to hawk products. You can go to the site and check that out. Of course, I want you to. I want you to go buy the products. But at the end of the day, it is secondary to my love of this wonderful, wacky, weird subgenre of toy collecting that we call SOFUBI. And then, I guess it's worth mentioning too, before I get into this, when I say SOFUBI and SOFUBI, I talk about in the most vague, general sense. I'm not just talking about the high-end, soft vinyl exclusive designer toys. I'm talking about most of Japanese kaiju collectibles. So we will talk a little Bandai here. We will talk a little, maybe kind of more of the mass-produced harder vinyl. We'll talk about X Plus. We'll talk about anything that kind of falls in that general vicinity, just because, hey, I love it all. And I hope you do too. So without further ado, let's get into the first kaiju toy review. And like I mentioned, one of my favorite pieces in my personal collection, and that is M1's 2005 lottery exclusive, the Golden Gezera. And here it is, the M1 2005 lottery exclusive Golden Gezera. Now, I want to follow those 4 S's that I talked about. And of course, let's start off with the subject, the creature, the kaiju, and that is Gezera or Gezora. It's like SOFUBI, Ghidorah. It all works here. We are very open and understanding in the kaiju community. And a lot of it comes with how, we learned it as a kid, or when we first were exposed to it. So to me, he's always Gezera. And so, I love this design. It is one of the weirdest kaiju, I think, out there. And of course, the movie that it comes from, Space Amoeba, is one of my absolute hidden gem favorites. It's a good little, kind of quick to the point story. I think it's beautiful stuff. Love seeing Kenji Sahara as the bad guy. I think he plays a great bad guy. But anyway, I love the movie. In fact, the Titan of Tokusatsu, Jacob Walsh, and myself on a YHS on Monster Island, an episode entitled "The Great Cinema Swap," we talked about Space Amoeba. So go please check that out. It was one of my favorite podcasts that we did, and you can get it on any podcast service or even go watch it on YouTube. So I love Space Amoeba. It's great. And so therefore I like Gezera. I do think he's the standout kaiju in that film. In fact, the fact that he, spoiler alert, the fact that he dies, halfway through the film is a bummer, because I do believe Ganame and Kamibus are secondary. Now, Jake will fight me on that because he loves Ganame, but I love Gezera a little bit more. And I thought he was wonderful. And what a weird, wacky design. I love that he's a little bit more, not human size, but a smaller kaiju, that he can interact more with humans directly as opposed to just destroying buildings. So right off the bat, anything Gezera that's out there is going to catch my eye. So the fact that, here he is, I think for me is a big check in that box. So it does fit that mold. So it's high up there on my list. He's not my favorite kaiju. He's not Anguirus. He's not Titanosaurus, not Godzilla, but he's up there. And I always will, do a double take when I see any Gezera merchandise. So that's subject. So let's go into sculpt. So this is the original 1970s bull mark sculpt. So this is the vintage sculpt. Now, I will say there were slight variations to the legs, so to help it stand a little bit more. The other ones were kind of wonky. So if you've ever had a vintage bull mark Gezera, you know that it doesn't always stand 100% all the time, and it's not super stable. It might be a little wobbly. So this one does stand a lot better, as you can see here, which probably isn't the best example because it's a hand, not a flat surface, but it does stand. I promise, take my word for it. And it's pretty cool. It's not screen accurate. There's elements of it, but it's not as pronounced in the facial structure as you see, and as goofy looking as it is in film. So it's one of those where they took the spirit of the film and adapted it to a little bit more kind of, I don't know, realistic, which is weird in SOFUBI because they usually do the opposite. And like I mentioned, or I don't know if I actually mentioned it, but the Marasan sculpt that is out there, I think if you want something that more closely resembles the movie, then I think that's one that I would go check out. It's a really, really cool piece. But the sculpt itself is great. I love it. You know, I think it's like rough. It almost feels like it's the suit design. I think how they do the texturing and the wrinkles here on the sculpt is wonderful. And I like it. It's really, really cool. It's about a little less than 9 inches tall. And the base, if you look at it from this way, the width here is about 6 inches. So it's a good sized piece. It looks great on any shelf. And like I said, because it's the vintage design, you know, there's always something cool about those 1970s, those not necessarily original, but when the first Gezera releases, sculpts and kind of repurposing them later on. I know it's pretty cool that it's, you know, 35, 40 years old before they actually did this sculpt. So the sculpt itself, pretty awesome. Not my favorite Gezera. I do like that Marasan one, but it's still a really good sculpt. It's nothing that would deter me from owning this. Now on to scheme. So the color scheme, the colorway, it's gold, guys. It's gaudy. It's hideous. It's ugly in all the best ways. I mean, it is just all gold in your face with ruby red eyes. I mean, there's nothing else on here. And then I know it's hard to see in the camera here, but if you look at it, there is some glitter that is mixed in. It's just enough to twinkle in the right light. And I think it adds to that kind of sparkly gold quality of it. I mean, it is just, it stands out. Like I said, it is just something to behold. And so that's one reason in a lot of my SOFUBI, I don't get what is necessarily the best design or color scheme. I get one that like is weird and interesting to me. And I think it would look really cool on the shelf and really will catch people's eye and my own eye and make me, start a conversation about it. And this is one of them. This is like, what were they thinking here? Yeah, I don't know, but I love the color scheme. So it's an A+ in color scheme for me. And I have a couple other gold SOFUBI items, but this is one that I absolutely adore. And then last is scarcity. So this isn't the most rare, but because it was a lottery exclusive from M1, it's not easy to find. So it is one that, you'll see it every now and then pop up in the auctions or at your local toy show that has maybe a SOFUBI booth. So it's not super duper, only 10 made in the entire world, but it is fairly rare because it is a lottery exclusive from M1. So, I do think that drives up the price a little bit on the secondhand market. I really do. I think that that's something that, you probably, you're not going to get away with this, probably finding it on a super good deal, even if you find somebody that's willing to move it pretty quickly. So, I will say my educated guess, and this is once again, guys, this is what I would be willing to pay for it, or I think might be a better way. If I put this guy on tokutoytown.com, what would I charge for this guy? I think this is something that if you can get it between like the $140 and $200 range, you're in pretty good company. I've seen these guys go for $250 before, especially if they come with the bag, which I just don't understand. I'm not a bag guy. Header cards are great. Appreciate the art. But at the end of the day, this is what I'm going to display. And so, yeah, so I would say if you can get it for $140 to $200, jump on it if you really want it. Other than that, I mean, hey, I hope you find it for $25. I really do. But that's what I would put it at. I would probably list it in that range if I were to sell this bad boy on tokutoytown.com. But I love this guy. So, yeah, so this is it. This is, like I said, this is one of my favorite pieces. I love Space Amoeba. I love Gezera. I love the gaudiness. I love the sculpt. And like I said, I think it adds a little extra punch, the fact that it's not something that every single collector in the world has. There's always a little bit of that. As much as we don't like to admit it, I think there's something extra cool when we can say something, hey, there was only 100 of these made ever, and I got one of them. And hey, it's okay. You can admit it. We're all like-minded people here. So searching for this guy, it can give you SOFUBI stress, but hopefully you can find him, and then that will relieve some of that stress. So he is the M1 2006 lottery exclusive golden Gezera from Space Amoeba. Go out and find this guy, put him on your shelf, and I guarantee you he will be one that attracts a lot of attention. So that's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll be back with maybe some unboxings coming up. I have a big shipment coming in from Japan that I would love to share with you guys. And I have some, there's always collectibles news out there talking about, there seems like there's a new release every day in the world of Kaiju collectibles. And so I'm sure I'll be talking about that. And then, hey, I have a whole host of other items that I want to share with you. Some of my favorite pieces, some of new releases, and anything from Super 7 to Marasan, from Bullmark Vintage to Bullmark Modern, from Gigabrain to Trendmasters. I don't care. We will talk about it on this show. So, hey, if you have SOFUBI stress, go out there and relieve it and buy some SOFUBI. I'm Jay Key, YHS on Monster Island. Like, subscribe, go check us out on anywhere that you can find your podcast as well as YouTube. Thank you so much. I will talk to you guys later. Adios.